Welcome to my advanced guide on Pokemmo reading. This will cover nature, IVs, egg moves, and incense. Every Pokemon has a nature. Depending on the nature, it can increase a stat by 10% and reduce a stat by 10%, but there are also some natures that are just neutral, like Hardy. The preferred nature will depend on the kind of Pokemon you're trying to make and the way you're going to use them. When it comes to breeding for nature, you need to make sure one of the parents already has your desired nature and is holding an everstone. Next example, I've got a Zubat with timid. It's holding the everstone, so the egg is guaranteed to also be timid. One question I see sometimes is if both parents already have a nature, child or the egg also have that nature, and the answer is no. Unless it's holding an everstone, nature will always be random. In this case, I've got a Zubat with modest and a Wingull with modest, and you can see here that it's just question marks. IVs, or individual values, are randomly generated when you catch a Pokemon. They will influence the stats, so in this case I have one with 0 IVs and one with 31 IVs across the board. If we hover over the stats, you can see that because of those 31 IVs, it gets 31 stat points at level 100. Whereas my Caterpie here will get 0 because they have 0 IVs. At level 50, the effect will be reduced by half because it scales with level, so my Breloom only has 15, despite having 31 IVs, because it's level 50. You can control the IVs of a Pokemon by breeding them. However, wild Pokemon will have random IVs. Outside of some Pokemon are guaranteed to have at least 1, 2, or 3 31 IVs. For instance, alphas and legendaries will always have 2x31 and 3x31 IVs respectively. So in this example, I'm going to go across a few of how you will breed IVs and nature. So here I've got an Ariados with special defense in my correct item. We're passing special defense here. I've got a Trapinch with the correct item for passing HP, and they work together because they're both part of the bug egg group. And you'll see the results will have 31 HP and 31 special defense, which is being passed from their parents with the correct items. This is how you would turn a 1x31 into a 2x31. This also means that if you have a Pokemon that doesn't have the range of stats you're looking for, you can't get it by accident because the IVs will always be between one of the parents or the average of the two. My next example here, let's say you want to breed higher up than just 2x31 like everyone does. So what you do instead is you want to make sure they have an overlapping IV. Since it's always going to be passed down by one of the parents, if they're the same, it's guaranteed to be that number. So this Beldum has 31 HP, it's got the item to pass it, and this one has 31 attack and the item to pass it. But because the speed overlaps, that's guaranteed, and I get a 3x31. You can repeat this all the way up to 6x31 if you want. Now let's say you want to add a nature to an already bred Pokemon, which is generally the best way to do it. I'll have my Pidgey here, and I will have my Zubat here. The way this works is, I'll open up their summaries to make it easier. My Zubat has Timid, and I have the item to make sure that I pass the timid nature. It also has 31 special attack, which is important, because the Pidgey has 31 special attack as well, so that's guaranteed to pass down. So what I do with the Pidgey instead is I give it the item for speed, and I add the speed to it, which means I'm adding speed and nature here instead of 2 IVs at once. For like a competitive Pokemon, which will usually be 5x31, that means that you'll need a 5x31, usually of the species you're trying to make. And then you also need a 4x31 with a nature to breed the nature over to the 5x31. And you need to make sure that all 4 IVs of that 4x31 are already on the 5x31. If I'm going too fast for you, that's okay. I will have another video where I actually breed a Pokemon and you can follow along step by step. I will explain each step as I go through them, and you can get a better idea of what I mean. So when it comes to breeding egg moves, usually the first thing I'll do is I'll look up the Pokemon I'm trying to breed. I'll go to moves. At the bottom I have egg moves here. Zubat can learn Pursuit and Quick Attack via breeding. So So let's say I'm trying to get quick attack on Zubat. Usually I will go to Bulbapedia because they have a nice chart that kind of shows all the egg moves and the Pokemon needed to learn them. But I already know that Pidgey has quick attack and they're part of the same egg group, so I can use that here. And you'll see in the summary, quick attack is being passed because it's known by one of the parents, and the species it'll turn into is able to learn the move as an egg move. This will keep working, so if I keep the Zubat and then I keep breeding other stuff into it to raise its IVs, it will always have this egg move unless you have too many egg moves. One thing with PokeMMO is that they treat TMs and tutor moves as egg moves, so while it's a nice way to save money, you do run a higher risk of having too many egg moves, and then the moves that you want to get passed along can get squeezed out. In this case, you'll have to delete some moves from the parents to make sure that the ones you want are getting passed along. One thing if you're trying to breed a TM or a tutor move from a parent is you need to make sure the first form is also able to learn it, or else it won't be passed along. So an example of this would be Rapidash is able to learn Payday by TM. But if you try to breed a Ponyta, and you look at the moves here, you'll see that Ponyta does not learn Payday, so it won't be passed along if you try to breed it. Another egg move that is often bred would be Rapid Spin onto Tentacruel. The way you go about this is you need a Squirtle that has Rapid Spin, which is a part of the Water A egg group. You'll need a Kabuto, which is a part of the Water A and C egg group. And then you'll need that Tentacruel, which is a part of the Water C egg group. So what you do is you take a male Squirtle, you breed it with a female Kabuto, you turn that into a male Kabuto with Rapid Spin, and then you breed that with Tentacruel to get your Tentacruel with Rapid Spin. There's also a handy shortcut to egg moves if you're breeding a field Pokemon, because Smeargle is a field egg group Pokemon and it's able to learn any move. So if you want to get like Wish on Eevee, you could just teach Wish to Smeargle, breed it with Eevee, instead of looking for whatever Pokemon learns it normally. You might be wondering why I threw Incense into this category. It's because they're another held item that you can use for breeding. What using Incense will do for breeding is get you some baby Pokemon. Generally, you're not going to do this unless you are breeding for Dex completion. You are breeding for LC, which is a competitive tier called Little Cup, which only allows first stage Pokemon. Or you are making a Munchlax for Payday farming, because it also has pickup. So let's say I'm trying to breed a Zerl. You'll see I have a Azumarill in here, and I have a Slowbro in here. But the resulting Pokemon is a Marill. The way to get a Zerl now will be to give the Azumarill a Sea Incense. And now you can see in the breeder summary, it's going to be an Azurill. What this means is that some baby Pokemon can be incredibly expensive to breed, because power items hold up an item slot, everstones hold up an item slot, and now Incense also holds up an item slot. Let's say you want to make a 6x31 natured Munchlax. You will need a Snorlax that is 6x31, a compatible Pokemon, like let's say Mareep, because they're both part of the Monster Egg group, that is not only 6x31, but also natured. The Mareep will have to hold the Everstone to pass its nature, and the Snorlax will have to hold an Incense to make sure that this baby Pokemon will be Munchlax. This means that you are effectively sacrificing a full competitive Pokemon with nature and IVs, and another Pokemon that has full IVs, just to make that baby Pokemon that has both nature and IVs. The costs of breeding can really add up as long as you're doing it correctly. The power items are 10k, choosing your gender is 5k or up to 21k depending on what you're trying to make. And sourcing the Pokemon themselves can also cost quite a bit, especially if you buy them from the GTL. I made a chart when I was first learning how to breed, and it will show you the costs of making these Pokemon. To make a 5x31 natured is 635k. This does not include the cost of getting your Pokemon, the cost of getting your Everstones. This also doesn't factor in higher gender costs because your ratio isn't 1-to-1. Now, you can only imagine how expensive it gets if you're not breeding correctly or if you make a mistake. Alright, that's the end of my advanced video. It just covered the things most people get into breeding for: natures, IVs, egg moves, and then also incense because it's similar. There was one thing I forgot in my basics video. Gifted Pokemon cannot breed either. You can tell a Pokemon is gifted as if it has a neutral nature. It'll have 15 IVs across the board, and you will also see a ribbon that says it's been given to you. If you're not sure where you get gifted Pokemon, this is stuff like the star you get from your professor, that static Drifloon that's in Valley Windworks, the Eevee that you pick up in Celadon, NPC trades, and I believe the fossils you pick up in Mount Moon or Mirage Tower will also turn into gifted Pokemon. The next video will cover some of the more niche topics like OT breeding, shiny breeding, alpha breeding, hidden ability, and light ball Pikachu, because why not? I hope this video was able to help you. If you got any questions, leave them below and I might make a Q&A once I'm done to help with any other questions. Only about breeding though. I don't care too much for competitive battling and all that.